TCI is brought to you by Astrology, a graded stakes-winning juvenile by AP Indy. New to TaylorMade Stallions for 2013.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Joel, we've been waiting for these major Derby preps to be in the books so that we could solidify the TCI top 10. I'm excited to jump in here and really talk about it. I see some new horses on, some other horses off. I'm a little surprised, so let's jump right in here. Let's talk about Palace Malice. He runs second in the Bluegrass. He makes the TCI top 10, but I see you leave the winner off.
Yeah, John, I mean, quite honestly, Palace Malice is just a colt that we've liked all along, and I know he has some challenges in front of him, but I thought he ran a great race in the Bluegrass on a track that he'd never really run over before, except for when he breezed as a 2-year-old over it. But quite honestly, I think he prefers the dirt. I think we're going to see that. Here's a colt that had no chance to run in the Louisiana Derby. If we go right now, the Twin Spires TV race replay with the play button here, and boom, HD footage from Keeneland. You got to like that. You see Riddick making the lead here in the Bluegrass, John. I thought they moved a little early on him. But you see Palace Malice, a good stalking triple on the inside, showed some tactical speed in here. That's what I want to see out of Palace Malice. Haven't seen that in the last couple races. And you see here, I like the way he's running here, but then he swaps over to his wrong lead again.
Right.
We saw this in the Risen Star. I don't know if he's gawking at the fans that are cheering right there in the apron, which is very close in the stretch run there, but he's clearly distracted. Green again. So I don't know if Palace Malice actually laid down and ran his best race in here. Some signs of greenness, and then obviously you saw two colts there on the outside finishing. We've seen that on the synthetic, these wide runs by these turf horses and synthetic type horses. And not to take anything away from Java's War, John, but he was on the board last year in the Breeders' Futurity too. Then he came back at Churchill Downs, and I know he didn't get really a pace to run at the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes, but he was nowhere to be found. So I can only go based on what I know of him as a synthetic horse and then what I know of him as a dirt horse. I understand he ran well in the Tampa Bay Derby earlier this year, but that's a funny surface as well. So Java's War, for him to come back in 3 weeks, a deep closer that when you look at the Derby right now, questionable pace scenario.
Right.
It's just hard for me to jump aboard his ship right now to put him in the top 10. I personally like Palace Malice, his tactical speed, but there are some question marks with Palace Malice coming back.
All right, well, let's move now to the Arkansas Derby. I know you were high on War Academy going into this race. Unfortunately, he was eased in the Arkansas Derby. Bob Baffert says that the horse is fine, not enough points to run in the Derby. But one thing I noticed also in here, Oxbow, a horse that was very disappointing in this race, you leave him at the number 4 spot, but once again, you leave the winner off of the TCI top 10.
Well, to defend my top 10, John, most of these colts that are on it, they've been on it basically besides My Loot and Palace Malice, they've been on it before and they've kind of returned to the list. There hasn't been a lot of fluctuation in our top 10. We made talent evaluations early on and we kind of stuck with it, and I'm proud of that. You know, we moved Orb to the top spot now, and we'll talk about that in a second. You see Revolutionary coming down to the 3 spot. That basically just solidifies our top 5 now, which we said we were going to do once all the final preps were in the books here. But when I have Oxbow still in the 4 spot, John, I'm obviously willing to overlook his Arkansas Derby performance because it was not a good performance. We pick it up here at the top of the stretch of the Twin Spires TV race replay with the play button here, and they're turning for home. And Oxbow, what you didn't see here is the fact that he just was not handling the track at all, in my opinion. He was climbing, he looked rank, he was fighting his rider. To me, he never looked comfortable to me, and you see him here finishing, he's up and down, and nobody's really finishing in this race besides your winner, Overanalyze. Now, it wasn't that fast of a pace. Overanalyze did close and win impressively there. You see, he's much the best clear of Frack Daddy and the rest of the group there. So you have to like the race, right? I still question this colt to a degree. Again, it was a slow speed figure. I do think third off the layoff, yes, you know, if he gets the proper pace in the Derby and he fires his A race, he could be a factor in the race, John. But again, I look at the consistency there, and I just don't see it from this colt. He's shown some good form at Churchill. He's also shown some very poor form. The Gotham race, again, is a puzzler. Why did he run so poorly in there? So for me to jump on the bandwagon now, 3 weeks into the Kentucky Derby, I'm just personally staying away. But again, when you're talking about the 9, 10, 11, 12, really, they're all interchangeable. Those horses, Java's War, you could really put any of them in that spot, and they belong at the bottom of that list. I'm more interested at the top of our list.
All right, so then just real quick, you think, I mean, both horses received a 96 Brisk rating. I mean, pretty slow compared to the rest of the Derby field. Is that a major factor why they're not on there?
Well, they were both, questionable races from a speed figure standpoint. I think it's hard to evaluate the synthetic speed figures and how that's going to translate to the dirt. But the bottom line is I just think we've evaluated, these 3 year-olds. We followed them all winter and all spring now. And really, there's been one colt that has just shown talent and taken the leaps and bounds that I've wanted to see in their development through the wintertime, and that's been Orb. And that's why he's number one. To me, he has the best Derby profile, and to me, he is by far the number one horse in there. And Verrazano, I'm keeping him at number 2 just because, again, we like the talent. We haven't seen anything new from a talent standpoint,
right,
but he's proven he can handle 2 turns. So to me, in a year like this where the pace scenario is questionable, and he could wind up on that lead with a moderate pace. Even if he's not bred for 10 furlongs, he could take him a long way just on class and ability. And obviously, Revolutionary had to come down from the 1 to 3 spot, and again, from the pace standpoint.
Well, I mean, Revolutionary, you know, he had a jockey change this week. It was publicized.
Yeah.
You know, I thought putting Calvin Burrell on there was a good choice. He obviously knows where that Churchill wire is. This horse is obviously a closer. So I'm a little surprised he's in there at number 3. I thought that number 2 maybe with Calvin on him. I mean, do you see Verrazano being able to be on the lead and hold the whole 1.25 miles?
I really do. I think they put Verrazano on the lead. I mean, really it's between him and Golden Sense. Just look at your 17 confirmations so far into the Derby. And I do think 20 points are getting you in. I think Charming Kitten's probably going to get into the race. And I do think the Derby trial and maybe the Lexington could have an impact because the winner's going to have 20 points. And, you know, if Title 10-5 were to win the Derby trial and they decide to run him back in a couple weeks rest in that Kentucky Derby, John, he could be a pace presence. But right now, I don't see a lot of pace presence in the race besides Golden Sense and Verrazano. If Verrazano is able to make the lead or stalk Golden Sense and get an easy trip behind moderate fractions, I think he's classy enough to switch off and perform well enough in the Derby, especially if all your deep closers, like Revolutionary, have to pass 15, 16 horses in the race behind a slow pace in a congested field. It's hard for me to see. And I do like the choice of Calvin because he gives you that knowledge of the track,
yep,
and he gives you that tenacity. You know, he's fearless. He will go up the rail. He'll put that horse in the tight spots. And he is a smaller type colt, and the colt is tenacious as well.
Yep.
Revolutionary is a fighter. So I like the pairing there. Calvin's going to give him every opportunity to win. But you got to have pace, John. Pace makes the race, and that's why he moves to number 3.
Well, one thing we are going to see starting this weekend, we're going to start seeing these Derby contenders up close and personal. We're going to go to Churchill Downs. Starting this Sunday, we may see Revolutionary, Normandy Invasion, possibly Verrazano. We'll be watching all of these horses breeze and really getting that feedback.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, really, the next couple weeks, John, you learn a lot of things. Who's thriving right now? Who's maybe sitting on a peak performance? I mean, these are developing 3-year-olds. You know, who's going the wrong way? I've seen a couple questionable horses already that you can tell they ran really hard in their final preps, and we'll talk about that when I get confirmation and we start seeing the way that they're breezing and looking and moving well over the track. You got to see all that as a tool, as a piece of the puzzle to figure this thing out.
All right, thank you, Joel. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll have that behind-the-scenes footage there from Churchill Downs. We'll also recap the Lexington and talk about the Derby trial.